library.
Ah, okay. So you're not impacted by the lockdown? Where are you at?
We're doing delivery of books to patrons.
Ah, okay. And which state are you in? Oh, sorry, Jane. Which state were you in?
Oh, sorry, New South Wales.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sydney.
So, in Sydney, same as us.
Yeah.
We've not seen our office for close to 2 months, I think.
So sad.
Well, I normally work at Avalon Library, which has got 60 volunteers, but I'm now back with the public libraries and working out of Manly Library and Mona Vale Library on the Northern Beaches.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice area to be in.
Totally.
Yes, I miss seeing the beach. I see a few more people trickling in. Be really good if all of you put your videos on as well, so we got someone to look at and look at your responses as well. We like this to be interactive, so also feel free to jump in with a question if you do.
Okay.
And we'll probably ask you for your experiences during this conversation. I think part of this is, we're trying to learn from each other as well.
Yeah, one of the great things about running a series is that I do recognize a few faces from some of the other parts to this series. If this is the first one that you've attended, then welcome. We run a series of webinars about volunteer engagement. So we'll talk about the future ones at the end of this presentation, but it's lovely to have you here for the first time, or welcome back if it's good to see you again. I know it's 10 o'clock on the dot, and normally I'm a stickler for time, but we do have some people trickling in still, so we might give them a couple of minutes as well.
I wonder if it's a trend. I noticed all the people that joined us earlier have got their videos on, and the people that join us later have got their videos off. Hey, Alicia. Wow, you're tuning in from the States. That's interesting. Must be late in the evening for you.
It's 8 p.m. here.
Okay. Yeah, I think in 2 weeks' time I've got to actually attend a course in the States, so I'll be the opposite, except they put it at, I think, their evening time, so it's actually 4 a.m. in the morning that I have to attend.
Oh, yes.
Okay, how about we get started? It's 10:02. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, I've seen many of your faces before. This is the third event of this series, but some of you totally new faces, so welcome. It's so exciting to have you here. So this is a Connect event. We are reaching out and using the collective knowledge of the many not-for-profits that we get to work with here at Communiteer And we wanted to run these webinars to help these organizations think about how they engage with their volunteers and help you achieve your objectives and goals, and making sure that we're able to work together and build on that combined knowledge. And today in particular, we're actually focusing on how to recognize and retain volunteers. So we thought this would be a nice way to wrap it up, to think about, we've talked about how to find the right volunteer, how to engage with them. Now we're talking about how to recognize and retain those volunteers for the long term. So thank you so much for coming, and we're looking forward to getting through a lot of examples, a lot of case studies, and hearing from yourselves as well today. So just to set the scene, let's talk volunteers. I think if you're here in this webinar, then you probably already know how important volunteers are. So not-for-profits have been finding and engaging volunteers for quite literally centuries. Not-for-profits in recent times, so even in 2013, they were employing almost 10% of the workforce. And on top of that 10%, they were also engaging 4 million volunteers. So volunteers are really, really vital to the not-for-profits in Australia and around the world. And we know how important they are. And today we want to focus on how we can retain and recognize our virtual volunteers if you are still trying to get used to the virtual scene. But we also want to have tips and practicalities for face-to-face volunteers as well. As we move in and out of lockdown, you might have to create a hybrid of the two, but that's really what we're working towards today. So today's agenda, it's pretty simple. It's hopefully going to be engaging. We'll be bringing in a lot of examples of the not-for-profits that we work with. So first off, we'll be introducing ourselves, which I know we haven't done yet, and we'd love to hear about yourselves and where you've come from. Then we'll be talking about the volunteering journey, and then that'll take us right through to how to retain volunteers, volunteer recognition programs, recognition in lockdown and beyond. So that's what we'll be working through today, and looking through that volunteering journey. And as always, we'll have a time for questions at the end, but feel free to include them in the chat throughout. Raj and I will try to answer them as best we can, but we'll also have a time for Q&A and building on our collective knowledge towards the end of the session as well. So let's discover our collective wisdom, Raj.
Yeah, so if everyone could just chat or put on the chat your name, where you come from, and even what you want to achieve out of this, that would be so great. And in the meantime, let us introduce ourselves in case you do not know us. If you've come for the third session, then you know us quite well already, and we don't need any introductions. But Will here is an expert on getting our not-for-profits onto our platform. So he has actually onboarded a ton of not-for-profits and figured out what their problems are, what the issues are in terms of getting onto the platform, as well as understanding volunteers and how to get them to volunteer for different projects. So if you've got any issues engaging with volunteers and figuring out what is the best way to scope your project so that volunteers will jump on them, Will is your man. And that is why he's with us today, because his knowledge on this is quite impeccable.
Thanks, Raj. You're too kind. So yeah, if you do come onto the Communiteer platform, we will cross ways. I work with our not-for-profits, often our volunteer managers, to help them get set up on the platform. I'm there for support from tech support through to how to engage your volunteers as well. But if you get to me, then you will have gone through Raj or one of his team of consultants. So Raj is our wise sage of Communiteer. He has a lot of experience in not-for-profits. He's worked in not-for-profits. He's been in that scene for a long time. And he works with our not-for-profits to identify ways that skilled volunteers can help their organizations. So he looks at the organization, how you're engaging volunteers at the moment, and has lots of suggestions for how skilled volunteering can support your organization. What areas of your organization can be really impacted by particularly skilled online volunteers, which is what we've been focusing on recently, particularly with lockdown. Doesn't mean impact needs to stop. So if you come through the journey, you'll meet Raj. That's why he's here. He's great at speaking into each of our not-for-profits. So it's good to have him here.
Cool, thanks, Will. And without further ado, shall we start the actual learning? So the first thing is something I've covered in our first Connect event, but I thought I'd just rehash it a bit for those who are first timers and might not understand where we're going to. The way we talk about a volunteer journey is really about where they are currently and where we want them to get to. And what you're going to find is with most volunteers, they start off their journey as a tourist. They're like looking at a new experience. They're trying to figure out, okay, is this what I want? Is this something that is going to give me a great experience, right? And this is where we have to make sure that they have a great experience with us, because we want them to continue on that volunteer journey. The tourist is always going there, just like you're a tourist in a new country, you're going to figure out, is this something I'm going to enjoy? Is this something for me? How do I make the best out of this experience? How do I contribute as well as get something back out of this? Because you've got to understand, as a volunteer, I also want to get something back. It's not just me contributing towards the not-for-profits. There has to be something in it for me as well, right? So when you go as a tourist to a new country, it's because you want to learn, you want to experience something, and you want to be a part of something different. The second stage of that whole volunteer experience is the traveler. You've done a bit of traveling, you've figured out, yeah, this is something I enjoy. This is something that could give me something back as well, right? And it's something where I might want a bit more of an experience with the not-for-profit and their cause, rather than just collecting tickets at the door, being a receptionist, or doing something mundane. So this is where you find, okay, I might be able to give them a bit more responsibility. But at the same time, you also got to figure out what is it they're looking for. Right? There's a whole part where we're trying to engage with the volunteer to figure out what is it they want out of this journey? What is it they want out of this whole experience? And are they getting it out of this journey with me? And this is where we build on them to basically become a part of the organization, right? I believe Frank from Hope did talk about the issues that you're facing in terms of recruiting, training, managing, and retaining volunteers. And this is where you got to figure out, you know, who your volunteer is and what they want out of it, and how do I get them to become the guide. So the guide is the final step. This is where I've traveled to so many countries. I've figured the experiences out of this, and I'm getting so much out of traveling. Right now, the way I look at contributing as a volunteer is this is helping me more than it's helping the not-for-profit. And when you get someone who's volunteering to get to that stage, what you're going to find is you've got a natural bond leader in that guide. And the rewards and recognition tend to be lesser for him as well, because he naturally finds that when I'm helping others or helping a not-for-profit, I'm actually helping myself. I see the whole experience as something that's benefiting me on a spiritual side, or on, you know, the karma side, or, you know, the fact that I'm giving out so much love, I'm actually receiving so much love as well. And I'm changing my whole persona because of this, right? A question that we have for you right now is, how many of your volunteers have you managed to get from the tourist to traveler to guide? And I believe Olivia, who's our producer, I would say, who I've got to thank for being here, has got a little poll for everyone. So we just want to figure out, with the volunteers that you have currently, and the way that you're guiding them through this volunteer experience, how many of them come back and are now like, you see them as staff, you see them as a member of the organization rather than just a volunteer, and they see themselves in that way as well. And the best part about a tour guide is they are a staff member. So you can actually give them responsibility, give them empowerment to make decisions on certain things as well. Yes, Oliver just mentioned that we will be making a recording of this whole event available as well. So you don't need to take too many notes, but do take down the dot points that you want.
We won't have a video recording, so all the nuggets of wisdom that Raj shares, you'll have to write down yourself, but we will have the slides.
Oh, okay. All right, I thought we had the video. Okay, so has everyone put in a vote? Alrighty, and there we have the results. So what you're going to find here is, there's quite a few at 10%, and then you got a few that go up in the 25 and 50%. And 50% is really good. You're doing really well with 50%. And where you really want to get to is that 75 to 100%. I'm really impressed with whoever's doing the 100% because you guys are really doing a fantastic job. So I might have to call on you guys to give us advice as well. So in the next slide, and this is something I've covered before as well, and don't worry if you've not heard about it. You can get the full thing in probably about 6 weeks time when we rehash this whole thing again. So we will get you the dates to go through it again when we have the Connect 1, Connect 2, and this is Connect 3. So when you talk about the volunteer experience with any project or with anything that they're doing with you, whether it's an event, a role, or a project, there are 3 stages in getting the volunteer from that tourist to a tour guide state. So the first bit is the brief. And a lot of us, when we talk about the brief, we're basically talking about the task at hand. How do we get the task done? What is it that we're trying to accomplish here? And where we have to change our mindset is shift the focus from talking about the task to talking about who the task is for and how will it benefit them. Who are the people that we are serving and who can identify with them? So some of the questions or some of the things that you got to do in your brief is try and figure out, how do I put across what my organization is all about, what the cause is all about, and who the beneficiaries are. So I might be coming in to do a simple thing like, collect tickets at an event. And it might seem very mundane. It might seem, okay, this is nothing much. Or I might be coming in to paint a wall in a house. I might be coming in to do like a finance project, right? And I'm just thinking of the numbers. But what you got to think about is, does the volunteer know why he's volunteering and what the purpose of this task is? And how does this task benefit the not-for-profit as well as the beneficiaries? Because that's what they are in for. They want to see how they're making an impact. They can do the accounting stuff at work. They can do marketing at work. They didn't come here just to do that. They came here because they wanted to make an impact. They wanted to see there's a benefit that they're giving to someone else. So whenever you give that brief, always make sure you mention what the organization is doing, how this is going to impact the people in the organization, or it might not be beneficiaries, it might be a museum or something like that. Yeah, how does that impact the museum? How does that bring in more people to learn about the museum and spread the word or the awareness about it? And that way you're going to find, okay, I got something to tie up with. When I volunteer, I go back, the impact that I've made, I'll share this with friends. The second part of it is guiding the volunteer experience. And this is where you actually figure out, look, who are you? Don't just say, this is a guy who's coming in, I'm going to make sure that I use them for their skills and then say goodbye to them. Bring them in as a friend, bring them in as someone you're trying to bring into your community, right? Find out more about them. What is their journey about? What is it that they want out of this whole experience? And keep checking back with them. I mean, if it's an event where it's one-off, you still have to check on them. And if it's a longer term thing, make sure you keep checking on them on a weekly basis to show that you are concerned about them, you want to learn about them, and you want them to be part of your organization as well. And make sure that journey is something they want to complete with you as well. Like I said, all volunteers want something out of this journey. Find out what it is. Find out how am I going to keep them involved, right? And finally, we get to the debrief. And the debrief is not about, okay, we've accomplished all these tasks. With the debrief, what I always suggest is ask two basic questions. Okay. The first question is, what did you experience? And many of us are going to answer, okay, I managed to complete this accounting software for you. I've changed this IT project. And that's where we go back and say, look, I understand you've done the task, but what did you experience? How did you contribute towards the cause? Did you learn more about what we're doing here? Did this experience change your mindset about the cause that we are serving? Did it change the mindset about the beneficiaries that we're serving? Did you see yourself in their position and figure out, how is my life different from theirs? If I was in their shoes, what would I be doing? So the experience is not just about what they've done, but learning about the whole experience that they've been a part of. And the second question is, what is it? Was it what you expected? Right? And this way you can gauge, look, when I came in, this is what I expected to be doing. This is what I expected to learn. Has that changed? And hopefully it has changed, because I've learned a lot more about the cause. I've learned a lot more about what the beneficiaries are like suffering from, and putting myself in that shoes, and my mindset might have totally transformed as well. And if you get to that stage, usually what you're going to find is you're also converting that not-for-profit, the volunteer from a tourist towards that guide. Because now they're not just doing a task, they're doing something which helps them understand why they're doing it as well. And hopefully enjoying it as well. If you've got that whole guiding thing down pat, then they're enjoying the whole experience as well. Okay. So the next part is we're going to talk about the third part of this series, which is all about rewards and recognition. So we do have a poll question here that Olivia is going to put up. So in terms of a recognition budget, what sort of money do you have per head that you can spend? And don't be afraid to put zero, because I know a lot of people have zero as well. And if you haven't thought about it, that's fine as well. But we're just trying to figure out what kind of budget you'll be working with, and we'll tie that into the ideas that we're going to give you after this as well. And what you'll find is, it doesn't have to be a big budget. But if you do have a huge budget, then that's fantastic. But if you have a really huge budget, you can actually hire them as staff as well. Yeah, Megan, if you don't know the answers, that's fine. So, you can just take, haven't thought of it or unsure. Cool. So we've got the results in. And yeah, I'm not surprised that there's about 20% where it's $0 or $5 or less, because a lot of us can't afford too much in terms of a budget. But with $5, there's a lot we can do as well. With $10, yeah, there's a lot more I can do. And yeah, I'm glad there's some with $20, because that can really push you. And I'm now curious about the ones with more than $20, because I really have to have a chat with you and figure out what I can do with you. So in the next slide, what we're going to try and attempt to answer is basically the question which I think Adele from Refugee Welcome Australia has posted to us as well, which is how you're curious about how to communicate the value as organizations as well. And we'll cover some of these points in some of the dot points that I'm going to follow on. But one of the big things about creating that value for the volunteers is the debrief and that guiding of that volunteer journey. Through that, you'll figure out, how am I actually telling them the value that they're getting out of it. And what you're going to find is they have to realize the value rather than you telling them, hey, you're getting value out of this. Because if you're telling them you're getting value out of this, then yeah, they're going to be turned off a lot of time. I mean, just like when if I would tell you, look, this is what you're going to get out of it, and that's why you're doing it, you're going to say, look, I've got to make up my own mind, right? So some of the points will address that, how you do it indirectly. So the first point we have, and we'll be jumping on this, is we've got to set up a reward system for volunteers that's based on their performance. So what this means is that we should really know what our volunteers are doing. Now, in terms of what projects they've volunteered for, what events they've participated in, there should be a sheet where you know, okay, volunteer A has done activity B with me or activity C with me, and how many hours have they spent on that event, on that project. So at least you track what kind of contributions they have made, right? Another thing that you can also look at in terms of tracking that is figuring out, with them contributing, what was that value as well? Like every time I come in and I say, look, I've spent 5 hours at this event, how much was that in terms of the staff pay that I would have had to give to get that volunteer in? If I came in and I did a whole revamp of your marketing, how much would that have cost me to actually go out there and put up a marketing project with a consultant? Now, the reason we do that is twofold. The first thing is we want to know exactly what the volunteers contributed, and that can go back to management as well. The second thing is we want to let them know as well, look, this is what you've contributed to us. And this is how we've benefited from you as well. And it also tells the story of their journey. The more they're contributing, the more they're going from that traveler mode to the guide mode as well, right? And more you got to think of how am I going to use them in a better way for them as well. And I think Will has also got some examples of how you can use our platform to track that. So I know it can be a bit manual to do all this, but that's where Will give you a solution.
Yeah, I just want to say it can seem a bit big brothery to say, oh, you should be tracking the hours or tracking their performance or things like that. But we're not coming from a management perspective. How can you get the most out of your volunteers? But particularly with to recognize your volunteers, it's brilliant to know, the actual impact that they're having on your organization. So here at Communiteer, we have a reporting system for the way that the volunteers come in and they work on a project and then give us feedback on how many hours they completed, how did they enjoy the experience, what were the highlights of working on this opportunity. So here, your eyes might be boggling. So this volunteer came into Endo ACT, one of our not-for-profits, and fully redid their website. So it was quite outdated, and they were really looking for someone to come in and fresh it up a little bit, but they didn't realize that they would find a volunteer of this capacity who actually volunteered for 60 hours over a month or two to fully redesign this website, to train their staff in how to keep it updated with the content and things like that. So these are the things that you could have just seen a new website and thought, wow, that's pretty incredible. We actually were able to see that which phases that he contributed and broke it down into, and actually volunteered 60.5 hours in total. So to reward those efforts, like you don't want that kind of effort to go unnoticed. So we sent out a little certificate for VJ to recognize the impact that he's made, because it was pretty amazing. And of course, Endo ACT were also very thankful to VJ as well. So we would highly recommend, certificates of recognition. If you haven't used Canva, it's an excellent graphic design website that helps with templates to create awards like this. And all you need is a simple way of recording the hours or the impacts that the volunteers have had.
Yeah, so with the certificate, what we're trying to do is make sure that whenever a volunteer hits certain milestones, we send them something to recognize that. And the certificate that we'll send to is something that we're sending to all the volunteers on the platform as well. So when the volunteer volunteers with you, make sure you know what the hours are as well. And what we can do is include you in that certificate as well. So we'll put your logo on it, we'll put your signature on it as well. And that might save you a bit of the manual work on your side as well, because we can do this recognition together. The second thing is, and this is something sometimes we forget, is make sure you thank everyone that helps you. Like right now, I have to thank Olivia for organizing this whole event. She actually started off with us as a volunteer as well. and she's still doing a great job with us. And that's something that, you know, we're so grateful for, because she has pushed this whole event into a whole different genre and meaning for us as well. So great job, Olivia. And it's as simple as that, right? Giving the kudos to the right people. So even if they're not doing a fantastic job or not done too much, we still say thank you, because that's going to go a long way, right? So the thank you is often underestimated or underrated, but the more you say thank you, a person's going to appreciate, look, I'm being appreciated, I don't mind doing a bit more. And it's, you know, I know someone asked, how much do we give in terms of reward and recognition? And this costs basically nothing. And what you find is, when you do a thank you, and if you can send a note along with it, or you can send a certificate along with it, sometimes your volunteers will go that extra mile. And this is where, Will, you got an example of, well, we just talked about Vijay, wasn't it?
Yeah, so this is Vijay as well, but particularly in the current climate where we're not seeing our volunteers face to face, you can mention it over Zoom, but an excellent way to recognize your volunteers and give that thank you is through letters. Keep it old school. And this is actually, so Fiji Book Drive has a base in Sydney that Vijay worked with, again, with their website. But they're based in Fiji, where the CEO resides and actually works with the beneficiaries in Fiji, wrote this letter to Vijay and sent it over to him. And he loved it, shared it on LinkedIn, and was able to, yeah, communicate. You can see there Fiona has seen that and commented as well. So that recognition, that's taking a step further from the verbal thank you, but it's an excellent way to still keep in touch and thank your volunteers, even in lockdown.
Yep. And one good thing about this as well, and some people don't see it, is the fact that he has shared it on his social media and he has spread the word. He's building awareness for the not-for-profit as well. And he's reaching out to his friends and saying, look, this is an experience that I've had volunteering with this organization. What it does is it's encouraging other people to take note of the organization. You build awareness, you've got marketing, you've got a bigger group of people and network that you're connecting to as well. So there's all these other rewards and recognition that you get from recognizing and rewarding someone else as well. The third thing is, and this is bringing up, like just now what we talked about was a thank you, and the volunteer was the one sharing the story. Going one step further is feature your volunteer stories on your blog and social media, right? So it can be as little as saying, okay, for example, in the one previously, Vijay has spent 60 hours on that project. What did he accomplish? How did he change the setup with the not-for-profit? Have a little blurb about that and thank him as a story, right? Now, if you don't have the time for the story, that's not an issue as well. You can get another volunteer to do it. So we've had volunteers on our platform actually come in and write stories for different not-for-profits about different people's volunteer journeys. And it's part of marketing, right? You're trying to build a story around your cause, your not-for-profit, your beneficiaries, and what you're doing. And what better way than featuring a volunteer and how they've impacted all that as well. And what you find is, if I share a story about a volunteer, guess what they're going to do? They're going to be sharing their story. They're going to be telling a lot more people, hey, there's a story about me out there. So not only are you telling a story about the volunteer, you're telling a story about yourselves. So all these tips that we're giving you, it's encompassing a lot of other things as well. It's not just about the volunteer, but about the organization as well. And here we've got another example as well that Will's going to share.
Yeah, so here we have Katie Rose Cottage Hospice. So they're on the platform as well, searching for online skilled volunteers, and have been able to have help with their CRM and things like that. But they're a physical location and they work with physical volunteers. It's been their bread and butter for many, many years. And they worked with well, they had volunteers from the Arts and Crafts Association for this beautiful handmade quilt. So they went into their hospice and was part of creating that really lovely welcoming vibe of the Katie Rose Cottage. So they were able to share that, and of course Noosa Arts and Craft were able to share that further as well. And the message about Katie Rose Cottage Hospice and the work that they do was really out there to be seen.
Cool. The other thing you can do is to host a volunteer recognition event that rewards your performance as well. And this can be a social do, right? So what you can do is have an annual event every year. You bring in the volunteers that have contributed the most, and this is where you go back to your reward system as well and look and see who has been your high performance, who are the ones who have gone from that tourist to a guide. And if you've got the capacity, then include the tourists as well. So at least they can come in and see others getting the awards. Have it as a celebration of the whole year, what you've been doing, what are the contributions that your volunteers have made, but also the impact that has been made on the beneficiaries and your cause. Because what volunteers also want to know as part of the event is, what impact have I made to the beneficiary? What is the cause? How is the cause changed? How is the not-for-profit changed because of all that we've done? And that's why you can go back and go, look, I've already calculated the hours they've come in, the kind of impact they've made, the savings that I've made because of all the volunteers, the different programs that they've come up with. So all these can be a part of the event. And then at the same time, you know, as part of your annual report and stuff that you go, look, these are the number of beneficiaries we've served. This is how we've built the awareness, or this is how we've changed the center. All that can be a part of that event. And don't just look at it as, look, this is money going to be spent on an event. This is actually also about bringing in your supporters, because you remember that all volunteers that are a part of your community and your support group are your immediate network that can bring in other people, and including donors and corporate sponsors as well, because a lot of them become your champions. And so you want a lot more champions to go out there and bring their corporates in as well. Right? And if you don't have the budget for an event, then that's fine. Will has got a great event coming up that you guys can be a part of as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak into the variety of recognition events that are out there. I think this is something that not-for-profits have been really good at in running recognition events, and it can come in a variety of ways. So there's obviously a lot of organizations will run end-of-year recognition events that double as fundraisers. So volunteers actually do pay for tickets, and it is a chance to combine those two things in terms of recognizing your volunteers, putting them, it's a fundraising event, you might even have budget to give them nice little medals or like a little plaque to say thank you for your efforts this year. So there's events that can be quite large scale. They can be fundraising events as well as recognition, or they can be really small, like Katie Rose Cottage that I showed before has a lawn bowl social for their volunteers every year as well. So there's a large range, and we've got an example from Koala Kids, just having some of their corporate volunteers actually come into their office and have a look around and get these cute little gifts as well. So it's kind of made a bit more special because of all the restrictions. No one's really been able to go into the office and meet the people that they're often volunteering with, but through a screen, and haven't actually met these people before. So it could be something as little as inviting someone into your office, giving them a warm welcome. But for those larger events, so you might be thinking, I only have 2 or 3 volunteers. Like we're not going to host a large event for them, or we don't have the budget for it. We do have, for all of our not-for-profits on Communiteer, we have an end-of-year recognition event. So in early December, we'll be hosting a recognition event for all the volunteers. We're hoping to have it face-to-face, but it might have to be online, just depending on what all happens. But we'll be running a recognition event, and it's a great chance to bring volunteers from multiple organizations. If you only have 2 volunteers, then they would be able to meet the many volunteers on the platform and from other organizations. And it's just a chance for us to, work out little certificates like the one we showed before, or a way to shout out volunteers who've gone above and beyond, like VJ. So if you're worried about this, or feel like I don't have the capacity to plan or manage an event like this, then we would love to hear from you. We'll be running one, so let us know. We would love to get you involved as well. But that's not all. We have more.
Yeah, so we've raised the whole thing about a thank you note, but so after every opportunity, you can send them a letter, an email, or a note, and tied into the recognition event. This note that we have, it was actually sent to me when I was a volunteer at Communiteer. Will, you can drag up that photo.
Yes, here we go.
It basically included a tea bag. Now, what you can do is, this is a great idea if you can't have a recognition event, especially now with lockdowns and stuff like that. Send them a tea bag, send them a cookie, send them a sweet. And then what you can do is have a Zoom event where you get all the volunteers together and you say, hey, thank you for this. You've all got a tea bag. Let's all have a cuppa. Let's all sit around and have a chat. And that could be a simple recognition event that you can all do. But when I received this as a volunteer, I was like, whoa, they're thinking of me. It's something that I can't describe, but the fact that someone is thinking about me, sent me something that I like, made the effort to write that handwritten note. And you send like a cookie or something like that, that'd be good. I can't show that here because I've already eaten it. But you have a session together with whoever's managing the team, or have an event together. That's a fantastic opportunity there. Will, do you have anything to add to that?
No, this is just such a lovely idea, and one of those, you don't have a budget, a tea bag can cost as little as 20 cents. So it's one of those lovely things that just really just takes time, and can be a great way to make the volunteers feel appreciated.
Cool. This one's a very simple thing, right? Provide your volunteers food when they work. It doesn't have to be food. So when they come into the office, make sure you got access to coffee, you got access to tea, you got access to a few snacks here and there. Make them feel welcome. If it's a whole day event, make sure lunch is catered or dinner is catered. So that way they feel, look, I'm taken care of as well. And going back, if it's online, then yeah, send them food like the cookie and the tea bag, right? Because then you're going, look, we're still trying to make sure that we're taking care of you. If you had come to the office, you would have seen, the tea machine or the coffee machine or something like that. But yeah, since you're not there, we're sending this to you. And then you're keeping them, as part of your whole community as well.
And yeah, just to add to that, like we all know those chocolate fundraising boxes where people are happy to give a couple of dollars and feel like they're donating to a good cause. And there are things like, I think Mito Foundation, who we work with, actually had some kind of partnership with this organization, so was able to get lots of these little packets. But they were running picnic fundraisers, and whatever picnic they created, they could include one or two of these packets of healthy snacks as part of their picnic. So just feeling like that, if everyone has the same tea, or if everyone has the same small packet of food, you're really feeling that connection. It doesn't have to be a high budget catered lunch, though that would be much appreciated as well, I'm sure. But yeah, being able to build that community over food, we all know how wonderful that is. So there are just a few different ways to incorporate that into your volunteering program and make it, you're just improving these little things and making the volunteers feel more connected to your organization, feel like they're valued and providing value as well.
Yeah, so the other thing is, and we've talked about this before, is make sure you keep your volunteers up to date. So the thing is, even though I'm just volunteering for this period, make sure I'm in your database. Make sure that the EDMs that you send out, not just to your donors, go out to your volunteers as well, because they're also part of your donor network and you're trying to build a relationship with them, right? What you'll find is a lot of volunteers after a while will also become your donors, will become your champions in the corporates. So make sure that they're part of your database. Make sure that they're part of the EDMs that you sent out or the newsletters that you sent out. One thing all volunteers want to know is what is happening with the not-for-profit I volunteered in. What has changed? Are there new programs that are coming up? Are there new ways I can contribute? Are there other ways, if I'm an IT person, I came and did IT project, but are there other ways I can actually be a part of this organization? When you're building that tour guide, you're trying to say, look, you're a part of my community, you're a part of my organization. So bring them in. What some of us forget is that these are your network. And the other thing you can use them for is blast them in terms of marketing as well. So whenever you have an event, you have a project, you have a program or fundraiser, send it out to them and say, look, can you help me put it onto your social media? Can you share this news as well? Use them as part of your network, right? And you'll find most of them would love to do it, especially once they've had a good experience with you. They feel a part of your community. They want to be a part of it as well. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Raj. So we do have some recognition tips as well. I think all of these reward and recognition aspects, we've tried to provide practical examples of them, but we have just some tips that we would love to provide. Yeah, just some overviews that you can be incorporating as well. Okay, so make recognizing volunteers fun for both volunteers and staff. And I've kind of coupled these together because we have some fun little ideas that we've tried to do at Communiteer. We do try to practice what we preach, and we take on all of these ideas as well. So making it fun and little recognition tactics, birthdays, milestones, volunteer of the month. These don't have to be high budget. These don't have to be extravagant, but they're adding to that culture. They're building those relationships. So here we have our little birthday wall. There's just fun little party hats. And what we've been doing for our Zoom birthdays has just been creating a little virtual background for each person. Kind of, you can see, I don't know if you can see the little avatar in the bottom left. That's a little cartoon image of the person whose birthday it was. So just a way to recognize those individual people, shout them out, make them feel special on that day. All those little bits and pieces can come together and make them feel really part of your organization and your community. And obviously demonstrate and communicate impact often. So this is one of those things that Raj was also touching on in terms of sharing the successes of your organization, helping them feel like they are a part of it, and seeing what is actually happening. So here on the Communiteer platform, there are a lot of job boards out there, and there's volunteer job boards, but the Communiteer platform has tried to build in ways of engaging your volunteers long-term and holistically. So here, Habitat for Humanity Australia has many volunteering opportunities. You can help with WH&S. You can look at their recruitment communications. Some of those opportunities are very boring. They're not on the grounds. They're not building a house compared to the work that Habitat for Humanity Australia does. It can seem like this isn't the fun on the ground volunteering experience that I expected, but they're seeing that the impact that they're having on this organization, and they're able to see that I was able to help in the back end so that Habitat for Humanity Australia can have this impact on the front end. So that Habitat for Humanity are not just sharing volunteering opportunities, but also sharing the actual impact that they're still creating, these real life examples of people who are benefiting from the work that Habitat for Humanity Australia does. And so a lot of these screenshots, I'm just taking screenshots from my screen as I look through our Communiteer platform. So if you haven't used it before, it is just an online opportunity platform. So we would love to talk to you about how you could get on there as well. But it is free for not-for-profits. It's where they post volunteering opportunities, access our database of volunteers, and you can post stories and opportunities like what we've been showing. I realize some of those screenshots might have seemed, where has this come from? But that's where they're coming from. And finally, there's create a support network for volunteers and actually form a community. So a lot of people do this through a WhatsApp chat, a Facebook group, or something like that. At Communiteer, again, this is that bigger picture, it's not just posting the opportunities. Here we've got discussions, checking in, how are you going? We post our events on here. Hey, we haven't seen you in a while, come along to our event. We have stories about our volunteers, and with Student Volunteer Week, we're able to shout out some of our student volunteers. So on the platform, we've tried to have a multitude of ways to actually engage your volunteers, make them feel like they're a part of the organization. They're sharing that, saying, I am a part of this community. I am representing Communiteer, and I would love you to join us and really feel like they're a part of that community. Anything to add there, Raj?
No, I think you covered it all. But the main point there is make them feel like they're one of your members of your staff. Make sure they meet every one of your staff, make sure they meet the whole community they're feeling a part of. Anything you do for the staff, you have to do with the volunteers as well. Cool.
Excellent.
So the other thing is, and this is part of understanding your volunteer, is trying to figure out what they're getting out of this journey. And this is something we might not look at all with volunteers, but a lot of the volunteers come here to develop their skills as well. So some of them might be in the corporate, they might be doing marketing, IT and stuff like that. But what they want to do is also make sure that they get a higher level of skill by getting different projects, and this will actually impact their promotions within the company. So you can find out from them as well, look, what is it that you're trying to develop? Or they might be trying to develop something completely different, right? So they're doing something different at work and they want to come out and say, look, I want to be someone who's more confident and able to speak to people. So you can use them in different kinds of situations to give them that experience as well. And then I'm going to bring it all back to that keystone behavior again. So what we've discussed just now was all about understanding your volunteer and making sure you're giving them what they want. And I believe there was a question from, who was it? From Julia, who said, like, you like to learn how to retain staff on one-off events. And another one from Marg, who said some volunteers want to be rewarded for their work and others don't. So the way we do it is understand your volunteer first. Some volunteers might have a different comfort zone from others. So don't just force them to do certain things. Find out who they are, what they want out of this experience, and make sure that is targeted when you give them the experience. Okay. In terms of the rewards, you also got to figure out what they're comfortable with. So some people might not like stories about themselves or being posted on social media and having their name and photograph everywhere. So know where their comfort zones are. And if you're asking that kind of questions, it also means that you haven't figured out who your volunteer is and what they like. So make sure that you know your volunteers and bring them in the right comfort zone. So Julia, in terms of, the one-day event, is the same thing. Make sure you have that recognition, make sure that you have the thank you note, give them stories about the organization, bring them back in. So from a one day, you try and get them to do it more and more often, okay? So I think we're in the question and answer section, aren't we? Yes, we are. So Julia, that was kind of perfect. Okay, I see a question here. What was it? Okay, my slide keeps going down. I'm not the most technology savvy person. Do you have any advice for engaging your volunteer community when your events have been inactive, postponed since the start of COVID? Run large-scale events that require 50 to, that's a huge event. Thanks, Taylor. So in terms of the online activities that you have to sort of get yourself into, like I know a lot of people are doing face-to-face events and stuff like that. What you got to do is transition to online sort of activities, and then you have your volunteer recognition and stuff like that online as well. So the suggestions that Will and I gave earlier, where you have send them a card or send them your tea bags and stuff and have like that recognition over Zoom, that actually works. So we've done a lot of even birthday celebrations on Zoom, as you can see from those photos. So that's one way of getting in touch. The other thing is, if you're having a lot of activities that are face-to-face and are struggling to bring it online, what you can do is actually get volunteers from the platform. And we've done this with a lot of not-for-profits where they come in and look at your current programs and figure out how we can actually transition them to an online one. And when things get better, like when COVID is over, hopefully, and we can become sort of normal, what you'll find is you can actually run both in parallel, and then you get a wider audience as well. So that's something to think about. Everything that's face-to-face, you should try and think of how to do it online as well.
I might just add there, Raj, that Communiteer had not run a virtual event pre the first lockdowns. We specialized in hackathons, physical events, getting volunteers on site and signing up to opportunities. So this is something that even we had to pivot when everything went online. So we've started online webinars, and I don't think we'll ever stop, because it's been the reach that we've able to have and be able to connect with volunteer managers and volunteers in Western Australia, all around Australia, even America. Thanks for joining us. Like the benefit of having the online webinars will not stop when lockdowns ease, but it means that we've been able to adapt and still reach out to our community, even though, yeah, we would love to see them in person, just figuring out what is the best method for doing that. And this Connect event came up in a couple of different forms, and so just, yeah, experimenting with what you have and the resources you have to keep engaging them, even though that, like, I'm sure this event sounds huge and would be one of those things that the volunteers get very hyped up on and are keen to come back next year, kind of thing. So figuring out how you can not replicate that, but sustain that without those events.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Any other questions out there?
Don't have to type in the chat, can unmute and ask us as well.
Yes, Colleen, that's a perfect point out there. So that's something which you can also put as part of your recognition. And we've done that as well. And something that we want to do along with the not-for-profits as well. So when we get all the data where we're saying, okay, a volunteer has volunteered for this not-for-profit and that not-for-profit, and we combine it all, we can actually make a stronger case for that volunteer to get an award as well.
I think that's it for our Q&A time, but we will have a post-event email going out. Feel free to reply to that, ask any further questions you have. We would love to help. But Raj, you want to take us through, we've already mentioned the platform, how you can get on board? Yep.
So I also had a question from, who was it now? That Brian from Microloan Foundation. They're looking for a volunteer who pay, and you are willing to pay something for marketing, fundraising, and management roles. And you're asking where to go. Well, the simple answer is the Communiteer platform. So the Communiteer platform basically brings in a whole bunch of corporates. These are our partners, and they basically pay to be on the platform. And therefore, what you're finding is the management is actually supporting their staff to volunteer on projects for the not-for-profits. And because of that funding, we actually get the not-for-profits on free of charge. So there's no cost to joining the platform. What you do is you have a page where you actually put in information about yourselves, build your awareness, and it's great because it's a targeted audience that you're speaking to. And you get dedicated employees of corporates who have got management backing to come in and work on your project. So it can be anything from collecting tickets at the table to doing a whole strategy for 5 years about marketing and fundraising. And we can even do like mentorships for your board members or even the staff, so you get upgrading of your skills. You can collaborate with other not-for-profits. Right now, we've got more than 2,000 volunteers on it. And part of it is also marketing. So we also do joint marketing with the not-for-profits and the corporates. Whenever a project is finished, we bring both together, we tell the story, and you know how the algorithms between social media work, it just blasts off. And the other big thing we do is campaigns, and we focus on different SDGs at different campaigns. And we're going to bring in my marketing guru, Maddie, to talk about it. But before I do, I would like to basically give Qatar a shout out, because Qatar is the person that you can talk to about joining the platform, and she can tell you so much more about the platform. So if you've got any questions on how to join it, give a big wave, Kata, and say hello.
Hello.
There we go. That's Kata.
Yeah, I'm there.
Who has probably talked to more than 200 not-for-profits in the last year, easily. And now to Mary, our marketing guru.
Hello, everyone. So I'll just give you a bit of a rundown of what our campaigns look like. So I'm the marketing and content team leader at Communiteer, and we know that one of the main ways we can engage volunteers is through telling your story and putting forward that why in a really strong and impactful way. So that's why we run regular campaigns focused on particular issues and bring some attention towards not-for-profits that are in these specific areas, collecting the volunteers that are like-minded and are passionate about these causes, and just kind of building that enduring community before we move on to the next cause. So eventually we want to have a campaign around every single SDG. So we recently completed back in May, Take Climate Action. And we ran that for 3 months, bringing together 36 not-for-profits, 3 businesses, and 335 supporters. So at the moment, we've just launched our Pathway to Employment campaign, and we're focusing on SDGs 4 and 8, which is quality education and decent work and economic growth as well. So we're trying to focus on empowering students and building their skills before graduation. We know it's a difficult time during COVID right now for them, but also taking their resources, their knowledge, and getting the help of corporate volunteers to target those resources towards not-for-profits in education and employment. So, I mean, with this, we allow not-for-profits to get access to this big pool of volunteers. They'll get support from students and corporate volunteers, and focus on their skilled volunteering opportunities. And it's also building relationships with the corporates that are involved and building awareness, because we'll do a lot of storytelling around this as well. So if you guys are interested, Olivia's just shared a link, or will just share a link to Pathway to Employment. I'll just share it now, and just express interest if you feel interested. We're still building our pool of not-for-profits and trying to get plenty of opportunities there for our students and corporate volunteers to get involved in. I'll pass it back to Raj.
Thank you, Mary. And that kind of wraps up our show for today. But as Olivia shared the link, and we will send an email to basically get you to update on where to join for the next event, and also invite you to join the platform if you are not on the platform as yet. If you're already on the platform and have any issues, talk to Will. He's your man. But from the team to everyone out there, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on the platform and in the next event. See you all.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a lovely day, everyone.
A good day and a good weekend. The sun is coming out. Spring is here. Gotta go out and have some fun.